Hi there, smart drivers. Talking to you today about passing your driver's test first time, mastering the skills you need to be successful. Knowledge test. This is the first thing you need to do to learn how to drive and drive with a mentor, drive with a driving instructor. You need to get a learner's license. Most tests in the United States and in Canada are 50 questions, of which you have to get 40 of the 50 correct. You have to get 80% on the test. It includes such topics as signs, signals, road markings, terminology, which is right of way, attitudes about driving, distracted driving, animals at night, night driving, defensive driving. All those types of information are going to be on your driver's test and will be in the driver's handbook. All right, right of way, priority, and the driving task. What is it that you're up against when you're learning how to drive? All driving tests have 4 components, and I've talked about this. It's an exact replica of what you're going to be facing every day when you're driving. You cannot drive the way other drivers are driving on the roadway if you are going to be successful in passing your driver's test, because all drivers engage in social driving. And one of the police officers on this case that I'm working on today said that the driver who struck the pedestrian was not exceeding the speed limit. I want to know what that means. Exceeding the speed limit. So does that mean you were speeding or not? If you were exceeding the speed limit, say that 10 times. All right, so social driving. You cannot do what other drivers are doing to be successful on your driver's test. You must have in place speed management, space management, observation, and communication. Those 4 components have to be nailed down if you're going to be successful on passing your driver's test. Learn how to drive faster. Parallel parking, 3-point turn, reverse parking, 2-point reverse turn, and U-turns. These are the slow speed maneuvers. As I said in the introduction, these are only 1/8 of the road test. But it's this very small percentage of the driver's test that gives you the most grief: the 3-point turn, the parallel parking, and the backing into a parking space. All right, for those of you in the state of California, Ohio, and Maryland, Maryland requires a 2-point reverse turn. Ohio requires the Ohio maneuverability test, and we have put together a course for that as well, and that will be available on the new website. And I'm hoping the due date is for the new website to be up at the beginning of the year. California, some driving examiners in Oregon will make you back up for 50 feet along the curb, all right? And that is a little tougher than you would think it is, and Corey will put that video up for you on how to back along the curb for 50 feet. All right, requirements of the road test: holding your vehicle in your lane, not deviating. Okay, observing, shoulder checking. The most common mistake that drivers make on their driver's test is not shoulder checking. Make sure that you know how to shoulder check for the purposes of your driver's test. Yes, you have convex mirrors. You have those little mirrors down in the sides there, your blind spot mirrors, or you have blind spot detectors. The technology is just a backup to good driving. You must be able to respond to changing driving conditions, and if you're in doubt or the traffic simply overwhelms you, simply just stop. Wait for the traffic to change and then proceed. Okay, you must stop immediately for emergency vehicles on the purposes of your driver's test. If you're learning someplace like in Duluth, Minnesota, there aren't going to be very many emergency vehicles while you're out learning how to drive. However, if you're learning how to drive in the Bronx, in Queens, in Los Angeles, emergency vehicles are going to be part and parcel of your learning how to drive every day. Abilities for a driver's test: 2 hands on the steering wheel, stopping back 1 vehicle length in traffic, stopping at the correct stopping positions at stop sign and controlled intersections. The positions at stop sign intersections are before the stop line, before the crosswalk or sidewalk. If those 2 conditions don't exist, then at the edge of the intersection just before entering the box. The stop sign, the position of the sign itself, has nothing to do with your stopping position. Let me repeat that. The position of the stop sign has nothing to do with where you stop at a controlled intersection. Stop lines, crosswalk line, before the sidewalk, and if those 2 conditions don't exist, at the edge of the intersection just before entering the box. Controlled and uncontrolled intersections and knowing right of way. Slow speed maneuvers, revisit those after you first learn how to drive, and after a couple of weeks of driving, go back and revisit your parallel parking, your slow speed maneuvers, your reverse stall parking, 3-point turns, and 2-point reverse turns. Revisit those, do those again, all right? You can take driving lessons with an instructor with a driving school. You can take whole classes, individual lessons, or you can just take a mock driving lesson. And if you haven't taken any driving lessons with an instructor, I do suggest that you take and book a 1-hour mock driving test with a driving school. They will take you out on the road test route. They will give you feedback on your abilities and skills and your preparedness for the driver's test. In other words, are you ready to take the driver's test and are you going to pass? And they will take you to the spot where the driving examiners do the slow speed maneuvers and get you to do those in those places. It is money well spent and the return on investment is really high. Okay, get as much practice as possible, practice in different vehicles and practice in different environments. And this is only possible if you spend the entire time on your learners getting as much practice as you can. Unfortunately, not much has changed with the GLP. Maybe it has here in British Columbia and it has in Ontario, the province of Ontario. But in the rest of the world, the rest of the United States, it hasn't changed much. Okay, drivers get their learners, they spend 6 to 8 weeks driving, and then they go and take their driver's test and they're on the road and away they go. Okay, we have simply postponed the age at which drivers are getting their license. We have not reduced the crash rate amongst young drivers. We haven't improved their risk of being involved in a crash in their first year of having their driver's license. The good, the bad, and the ugly, the reality is that sometimes good drivers fail their driver's test and bad drivers pass. If everything goes right on the driver's test, drivers that don't have a high skill set are going to pass the driver's test. Good drivers that did a lot of work and are ready to go and take their driver's test, something could happen on the driver's test that exceeds their ability and they're not going to pass, okay? Do not let this consume you and stall you from taking your driver's test again immediately, okay? Book the next available road test and go and do your test. Get your license, okay? Don't wait 2-3 years because you failed, okay? It's not a failure, it's just an unsuccessful attempt, okay? We only fail when we give up, when we stop doing it, okay? So just go and do it again as quickly as possible. All right, practice driving test, book 3 weeks out if you do want to take a driving test, a practice driving test with a driving school. Book it 7 to 10 days before your driver's test. And as I said before, the return on investment is really high because if you fail your driver's test, you got to rebuild your confidence and you got to go back and you redo all those skills again and then you got to take the test again. Okay? As I said, it's really good because the local driving school will take you on the route. They won't tell you that, but they will, and they'll take you to the place where the driving examiner is going to do their slow speed maneuvers, the parallel parking, the 3-point turn, and backing into a parking spot. And as I said again, go to the driving test center and practice after hours on the weekends and practice in and around the driving test center at the time during the week when you're going to be taking your test. Fundamentals. Darling, luck favors the prepared. My favorite Incredibles character, Edna. Okay? You must master the basic skills, prepare for the opportunity to be successful on your driver's test. On road test day, get a good night's sleep, eat some breakfast, bring your documentation, bring your driver's license, bring another piece of identification with you to the test center. If you wear prescription glasses and it is a requirement on your driver's license, bring your glasses, wear your contacts, and bring money. No, it's not free to take the driver's test. There's a fee for taking the test and there's a fee to administer your driver's license to you after you're successful and pass. And yes, there are some people going to schools and those types of things and they pay for all of that, but for the most part, the rest of us commoners, we all have to pay for our driver's test. Okay, keep going until you're told to stop. Sometimes you'll make a mistake and you get stuck on that mistake and you're like, oh my God, I made a mistake, and you just give up and you fail. Okay, if you make a mistake, keep going until the examiner tells you to stop, because the mistake that you think you made may not even have been made, okay, or the examiner didn't see it. All right. Take away the driving examiner's right to fail you. Nothing less, nothing more. That's all you need to do to be successful in passing your driver's test. Good luck on your driver's test, and remember, pick the best answer, not necessarily the right answer. Passing your driver's test, 4 skills you need to have in place: space management, speed management, observation, and communication. That's what you need to have in place in order to pass your driver's test. We're going to talk about those skills, techniques, abilities that you need, the information that you need to have in place, reading road signs, practicing in and around the test center where you're going to be taking your test. You can go into the test center on the weekends and after hours. Do not go in during the day when they're doing tests and those types of things. Go in after hours, the evenings, and on weekends, holidays, those types of things. You can practice in the test center. There are some test centers that will leave the pylons and the course set up for you if that's what they have at their course or at their test center. So for example, if they're using cones to parallel park, they'll leave those set up for you at the test center, and you can go in after hours and use those. And I strongly suggest that you do that. As well, if you're going to be taking your test during the week at 10 o'clock in the morning, go in during the week and practice in and around the test center at the time you're going to be taking your test to simulate the traffic conditions that you're going to encounter on the day of your test. We'll go over all of that information as well. The other piece about it is practicing in and around the test center. You want to figure out where the schools are, because speeding in a school zone is an automatic failure, and at this time of year, schools are in session. You're going to be going past schools with the examiners and those types of things, so make sure you know where those are. Churches, high density pedestrian areas, because you're going to have to slow down and whatnot. And I will tell you a story about a pedestrian that was struck in a crosswalk in the United States, and terrible crash. The young driver failed to read the traffic patterns. This is something I'm talking about all the time. Reading traffic patterns and determining the actions of individual road users in and around the roadway. So we're going to talk about that today. Or is it based on which state you're in? Hub, it depends on what state you're in. If you're in the state of California, Maryland, and Ohio, there's no parallel parking. Those are the only 3 states that I know that don't have parallel parking. Evan, to pass your driving test, think if I failed, it's no problem. I will go back and do the test again. That will make you feel good. Think I've got to pass it will make yes. If you're not successful on passing your driver's test, book another driver's test. Do it again as quickly as possible, okay? Don't delay, because you don't have to wait a certain amount of time. The only place that you have to wait that I know of is here in British Columbia. The rest of the places, you just book it. In some places, you can do your driver's test like again the next day. Don't let some driving examiner's opinion of you become your reality and postpone it for 2, 3, 4 years. Just go back the next day and redo it. The other piece of information about driving tests is if you fail your driving test and you go back and do it again, you are not going to be with the same driving instructor or the same driving examiner. They will put you with a different driving examiner. It's very unlikely that you will have the same driving examiner 2 times in a row if you're unsuccessful with your test, okay? Rena failed because of parallel parking. Okay, so do that work again, and that's a point, what Rena just said about failing your driver's test. Very little of the test is slow speed maneuvers. Backing into a parking space, parallel parking, 3-point turn. Those are the 3 maneuvers that you have to know how to do. Nail those maneuvers, and it's going to make your test much easier. However, most drivers don't spend the time they need to on these slow speed maneuvers: parallel parking, backing into a parking space, and 3-point turn. These will improve your overall driving. So practice those first and then go out on the roadway and drive. Don't go out and drive around for 3 weeks and then 2 days before your driver's test go, oh, I got to learn how to parallel park and 3-point turn and whatnot. Do the slow speed maneuvers first and then go and do your driver's test. Elevator, if the driving examiner intervenes, yes, you will fail your driver's test automatically because of some sort of dangerous action or imminent crash or something like that. Yes, you're going to fail your driver's test right away. Caramel, what is the guide to help when reverse parking that will help on a driver's test? Okay, Caramel, if you can, the best way to back into a parking space on your driver's test is to back in beside another vehicle. That is the easiest way to do it, because if you just try to back into an empty parking space, you don't have any landmarks. Whereas if you back in beside another vehicle, you're going to find it easier. As well, if you do have a backup camera, you can use a backup camera on a driver's test. You just can't use it as your main line of sight. All right, you can use it, use your mirrors, but you do have to look out through the back window for the duration of backing up. But take a glance at your backup camera, take a glance at your mirrors when you're reversing. You can do that for the purposes of your driver's test. Arch, because of you, Rick, I teach my students 3-point and parallel park within first, second lessons, and that's awesome, Arch. I'm so glad to hear you do that, because it just makes it easier for them when they get on the roadway, because it teaches them control of the steering wheel, the brake, and the accelerator. And it teaches them where their vehicle is in relation to other things on the roadway. They have a sense of where their vehicle is in space and place. Practicing in and around the test center where you're going to be taking your test. You can go into the test center on the weekends and after hours. Do not go in during the day when they're doing tests and those types of things. Go in after hours, the evenings, and on weekends, holidays, those types of things you can practice in the test center. There are some test centers that will leave the pylons and the course set up for you if that's what they have at their course or at their test center. So for example, if they're using cones to parallel park, they'll leave those set up for you at the test center, and you can go in after hours and use those. And I strongly suggest that you do that. As well, if you're going to be taking your test during the week at 10 o'clock in the morning, go in during the week and practice in and around the test center at the time you're going to be taking your test to simulate the traffic conditions that you're going to encounter on the day of your test. We'll go over all of that information as well. The other piece about it is practicing in and around the test center. You want to figure out where the schools are, because speeding in a school zone is an automatic failure, and at this time of year, schools are in session. You're going to be going past schools with the examiners and those types of things, so make sure you know where those are. Churches, high density pedestrian areas, because you're going to have to slow down and whatnot. And I will tell you a story about a pedestrian that was struck in a crosswalk in the United States, and terrible crash. The young driver failed to read the traffic patterns. This is something I'm talking about all the time. Reading traffic patterns and determining the actions of individual road users in and around the roadway. The one mistake that experienced drivers make is they don't shoulder check, and they rely on observation technology. They rely on blind spot detectors, backup cameras, proximity sensors. All that is what they rely on. So that's what's happening. And that is the number one mistake that they make. Signaling. Yes, Caramel, signaling, not shoulder checking. Those are all issues with drivers. But the most important, the number one failing of experienced drivers is they follow too close, they stop too close in a line of traffic. Those are the two major mistakes that veteran drivers make. Included in that is the fact that, and this is a fact, this is a statistic, the number one crash in North America is tailgating crashes. And those occur because people are following too close, fail to observe correctly, and brake too late. So if you increase your following distance, you have more time to read traffic patterns and interpret the actions of individual road users, and it is less likely that you're going to rear end the traffic in front of you. So if you can increase your following distance, observe better, stop back one vehicle length, signal, shoulder check, all that is going to keep you safe when you're driving on the roadway. In addition to that, these are fundamental skills for being successful on a driver's test and passing your driver's test. These have to be in place. You cannot drive the way that everybody else drives because, as you said, most drivers are engaged in social driving. They're not signaling. They're following too close. They're not shoulder checking. They're not observing correctly. They're not looking into their blind areas when they're reversing, and they get into crashes. Jake, perhaps you could share insight into the absolute fascination with left lanes. Many people cannot be pried out of them. I've been trained as a right lane hog, far most right as possible. Jake, we call those left lane squatters. and why people insist on sitting in the left-hand lane and are not paying attention to what's going on behind them or traffic piled up behind them, I don't know. It is one of the mysteries and one of the interesting points in the psychology of driving, and it seems to be a North American phenomena. It's not something that happens in Europe. If you sit in that left lane in Europe, they're going to honk at you, they're going to be aggressive, they're going to flash their lights, and in some cases you might even get run over. So it tends to be part of the culture of North American driving, not driving in Europe, which is very different. Elevator is being too aggressive with the primary controls and automatic fail in the driver's test. Elevator, it's not if you are being too aggressive on the brake and slowing too late. In other words, you're braking too hard, then oftentimes aggressive behavior or aggressive use of the steering wheel, the brake, and the accelerator simply indicates to the examiner that you haven't practiced enough, right? You simply don't have enough experience driving, and that you probably will not be successful in getting your driver's license because you're too aggressive with the primary controls. Marion noticed that some driving schools teach their students to drive in the left lane, especially certain cultures. Marion, yes, and you probably noticed that more in Vancouver because you have bigger populations of immigrants there in Vancouver, and there's no doubt about it that people in different cultures drive differently, and I'm not sure what we're going to do about that. It's problematic. There are some issues with it in terms of licensing and those types of things. Mallory, I love your videos and I'm watching you from my hospital bed, and Mallory, I hope that you get better soon and that you're home soon, so keep us informed. Red Rose, I've been doing your course, practicing, took a driving lesson, and the instructor told me I was totally ready. I have my test upcoming in early December. Anything I should practice to help with anxiety? Red Rose, yes, definitely focus on, not like overly focus and be doing parallel parking and 3-point turns every day and backing into parking spaces, but, do at least one or two, every time you go out. For a drive, for sure, but definitely that space in front, your 2 to 3 second following distance when you're driving, signaling, shoulder checking, lots of shoulder checking, 2 shoulder checks per turn every time you're changing lanes, and signaling, okay? If you can get all that in place, you're going to do just awesome on your driver's test. Breathing, do your breathing exercise for the fear and anxiety that you feel around taking your test, right? And if you have time between now and your driver's test, try and get in the vehicle with different people. Go with your uncle, go with your aunt, go with your neighbor. If they'll come in the car with you and say, hey, I just want somebody else in the vehicle to maybe give me some feedback on my driving. That way you'll get more comfortable with different people in the vehicle. So when this stranger with a clipboard or a tablet gets into your vehicle to take you for your driver's test, you're not going to be kind of freaked out about that when you go for your driver's test. And again, so in through the nose, hold for 3 seconds, let out all the negative energy, and that will cause your body to relax and keep you, focused for the purposes of taking your test. Mallory, ambulance drivers are some of the best drivers around. I should know I've had a few rides in the back of the ambulances lately. Well, we're great to know. It's awesome to know that ambulance drivers are doing a good job. That's awesome. Eric, can you please be a driving guide here in the States? Your knowledge is so valuable. I wish there was a way to upload your wisdom. Eric, you're here every week. You're doing awesome, my friend. We're certainly helping you out. We're going to be doing a lot more winter driving because of, you're there in Minnesota and we're here in Vernon, and we're definitely going to get snow soon because it is getting colder at night. Had to bring all the flowers in the other day, the geraniums that I'm saving overnight, which is kind of fun. Questions about passing a driver's test, the 4 components as I talked about in the introduction that you have to have in place to be successful on your driver's test: space management, speed management, observation, and communication. All right, so space management, 2 to 3 second following distance minimum to be successful in passing your driver's test. Stopping back in traffic 1 vehicle length from the vehicle in front of you when you're stopped in a queue of traffic. Your landmark for that is to be able to see the tires of the vehicle in front making clear contact with the pavement. And for those of you who've been here and are keeping, showing up every week for the live streams, you've heard me say that in terms of defensive driving and your driving test. Those skills, those are fundamental driving skills, okay? And I just talked about this in terms of mistakes that veteran drivers make. They follow too close, they brake too late, they fail to observe. Consequently, the statistic is real that the number one crash in North America is rear end crashes, more so than reported windshield damage. So know that, okay? That this is what you need to have in place. So space management, stopping at the correct stopping position at controlled intersections before the stop line, before the crosswalk or sidewalk. If those two conditions don't exist, at the edge of the intersection just before entering the intersection. An automatic fail on a driver's test proceeding straight through an intersection. You can't go into an intersection. You can't clear and drive out on the other side because it contributes to congestion. And for those of you who live in New York City and the boroughs, don't block the box. They have signs all over the place, and there's a huge fine for blocking the box and contributing to congestion in the United States there. So that's one of the automatic fails. Another automatic fail is not stopping for emergency vehicles. And as Evan said, if the examiner intervenes on your test, that is an automatic fail on your driver's test, because it's often because there's a dangerous action or there is imminent threat of a crash. So if the driving examiner intervenes, that is an automatic fail on your driver's test. So that's space management. Speed management is the posted speed limit or the flow of traffic, whichever is less, okay? So what I mean by that is if the posted speed limit is 25 miles an hour, as it is in the 5 boroughs in Manhattan, in New York City, but traffic is only moving along at 20 miles an hour, you can only do 20 miles an hour, but otherwise you have to do the posted speed limit. Don't dawdle. It indicates to the examiner that you don't have enough driving experience, and if you dawdle, it's just as bad as driving too fast and you won't be successful in your driver's test. Observation. You have to have a forward scanning pattern in place that repeats every 10 to 20 seconds while you're driving in a forward motion. It includes looking far down the road, checking your incident panel, looking far down the road, check your center mirror, far down the road, check your left wing mirror, far down the road, and then check your right wing mirror. And then that repeats every 15 to 20 seconds, so you have 360-degree awareness around your vehicle. Shoulder checking, shoulder checking, shoulder checking. This is the most common error on driver's tests. Every time you turn, 2 shoulder checks, one approximately half a block before the turn, and then immediately before the turn. If you're sitting at the intersection for a long time because you're waiting for an opening, a gap, then you need to shoulder check again immediately before proceeding. What are we looking for when we're shoulder checking? Okay, we have central vision and we have peripheral vision. Peripheral vision in a healthy adult is 180 degrees. That means it's out here. Our peripheral vision is attracted to light and movement. So if you take your hand and you put it here and you move it, you can see it. If you put it here, you can see it. So when you turn your head 90 degrees, you're now looking in this whole area. And every vehicle has blind spots. And if you have these knuckleheads that come on my channel and say, oh, I can adjust my mirror so I don't have any blind areas on my vehicle, that is horsepucky. There's your word for the day. Horsepucky. Every vehicle has blind spots, and you must move your head to see into those blind areas around your vehicle. You cannot adjust your mirrors. Blind spot detectors are too slow and unreliable. You must move your head when you're driving. And if Corey will put up the video for you on how to observe to pass your driver's test. And in that video, I have a go at driving instructors because they're the worst for teaching this. You get in their car and they have 3 or 4 mirrors in their car, and you're like, well, why do you have those mirrors in your car? Oh, I'm watching the student's eyes. No, the student should be moving his or her head because our eyes biologically do not move enough in our head, in our skull, to be able to look in the center mirror, to be able to look in the side mirrors of the vehicle. And the bigger the vehicle, the pickup truck or a bus, a semi-truck, the more you have to move your flipping head. Okay? And I get really excited about this point because people will come back to me and say, oh, I don't have to, I don't have to shoulder check. I can adjust my mirrors. That is bullpucky. That's horsepucky. It's dogpucky. It's every other animal that has a poop. It's pucky. Okay? You must move your head when you're driving. Head on a swivel, shoulder checking, moving. The pillars, the A pillar, which is the pieces of steel that hold the windshield in on both ends, create blind areas. And the B pillar, I was driving my mate's pickup truck, and the B pillar, which is the pillar at the back holding the door, creates a blind area. So you have to look, you have to shoulder check, because the bigger the vehicle, the bigger the blind areas. Shoulder checking, observation, reversing, you have to look out through the back window. You can use your mirrors, you can use a backup camera, but you have to look out through the back window for the duration of reversing on a driver's test to be successful. And before you start backing up, you have to do a 360-degree scan around your vehicle and make sure there's nobody in your blind areas, there aren't any pedestrians around, and those types of things. Communication. The number one way that we communicate and the number one way that we observe is the motion and the position of vehicles and road users on the roadway. So if there is a pedestrian standing at a crosswalk, there's a high probability that that pedestrian is going to step out into the roadway. If you have a cyclist riding down the road and they're shoulder checking and they're looking behind them like this, they're going to move out into traffic, because that's why they're shoulder checking. Take note of the actions of road users, interpret traffic patterns, look at traffic signs, and you will be able to determine what road users are doing. And this is a perfect time to talk about the case that I'm working on right now. An intersection, it's a T intersection like this. There's a T intersection, there's a crosswalk at the T intersection. Cars are stopped in the right-hand lane. The young driver, 16 years old, comes up, goes through the intersection, and cleans up a pedestrian because he did not take note of, one, the traffic signs that warned of the pedestrian crossing at the intersection. So that was the first warning that they missed about traffic patterns. The second warning was the 4 stopped cars in the right lane at the intersection. If you're coming up to an intersection and there's 4 stopped cars at the intersection, you're going, oh, wait a minute, why are those 4 cars stopped? And until you figure out why those cars are stopped, you need to go slow and proceed with extreme caution. Unfortunately, this young driver failed to see the traffic signs and failed to take note of what the cars were doing at the intersection and hit a pedestrian and killed them. 16 years old. Was charged with a misdemeanor in the United States, failing to yield to a pedestrian in a crosswalk. Now he's being sued. So, think of how that is going to change your life as a young person if you fail to read traffic patterns, if you fail to understand the actions of individual road users and take note of that and proceed with caution when just simply slowing down could prevent that crash. Because unfortunately, in the area of driving, getting a driver's license and defensive driving, which these things are all tied together, they all dovetail, there's still the thinking that you need to react to emergency situations on the roadway, and if you can react fast enough, then you're going to prevent a crash. No, if we can observe and we can read traffic patterns and interpret the actions of individual road users, then we can be proactive and we can respond to traffic accordingly and put in place the right actions that will prevent traffic crashes. If we can do that by keeping space, because space buys us time, time buys us options, options prevent crashes. All right, that's what we want to do. Arch, my students are always shocked when I tell them to look out the back window in reverse. They say they can't see, and then they start to turn their head in all kinds of ways other than in the direction needed. Yeah, Arch, it's not just your students. I actually had driving instructor students that were going to be driving instructors. I was training the trainer on a course, and same thing. Didn't look out through the back window, and finally I went into a parking lot and I said, okay, who was ever in the driving seat? I kicked them out of the driver's seat. I sat in the driver's seat and I showed them how to do it, to look out through the back window. And probably the same excuse that you get, oh, I can't see, and those types of things. I actually put my arm over the passenger seat, I lifted my butt off the seat, so I made myself nice and tall, and then I looked out through the back window. I said, this is what you need to do to reverse, to get your students to be able to pass the driver's test. So that's why I tell students, put your hand on the back of the passenger seat, because that way you can lift up and you can turn your hips, and that way you can look out through the back window. So you have to teach them all these things. They just, you don't know them. And sometimes it's just a quick lesson of you getting in the car and showing them how to do that is going to alleviate a lot of your problems, because if they can see you do it, because sometimes we fail in explaining it to students, and or for whatever reason they just don't get it. So sometimes you just need to demonstrate it to them. And what if I'm too short to see out the back window? Marion, again, that's exactly why you do it. You put your hand on the back of the passenger seat, or you put your hand on the console. You've got your HRV there, so you probably have an armrest. Put your hand on the armrest and lift yourself up like this, and then look. But your HRV, I suspect, also has a backup camera, so you can use your backup camera, use your mirrors, but, you know, figure out where you can get some leverage to lift your butt off the seat so you can look out through the back window. Okay? Jake, if you're facing backwards, your hand movement will be backwards or frontwards or whatever it is. Okay, and here's the other piece about it for those of you learning how to drive and get your driver's license. Yes, you're a little bit confused about which way you turn the steering wheel to back up, so the back end of the car is going in the direction you want it to go. So when you're reversing, put your hand on the top of the steering wheel. If you want the car to go that way, push the steering wheel that way. If you want the back of the car to go that way, push the steering wheel that way. That's how you do it for reversing in the car. Put your hand on the top of the steering wheel. All right. Status, my G test is in April, requires me to re-practice highway driving 5 times with 3 months, or the examiner will cancel the test if I don't practice. Status, how are they keeping track of that for your driver's test there in Ontario? Marion, yes, it does, and I usually look out all the windows except the back window because I'm short. All right. Nino, is that applicable to all places to put shoulder in the seat when reversing? Yes, it is. All places, it's the same. They want you to turn around and look out through the back window when you're reversing and backing up. I passed my driver's test first time 2 months ago. Fortunately, the DMV I went to does not require to slow speed maneuvers to pass your test. Only drive for 5 minutes and park. In which state are you in where they didn't require you to do that? Because here's the other piece about it that is an excellent point. Driving examiners have discretion in what they get you to do. They may not get you to parallel park. They may not get you to do a 3-point turn. They have discretion. If they're having an off day and they really just don't feel like it, they may just get you out, go around the block, come back, and get you to back into the parking space, and your test is over. So I have students that come to me and say, oh, it's different in Arkansas. It's different in Maryland. It's different in Minnesota. Yes, the test is different in those states. If you want me to make it even more complicated for you, every DMV, every BMV in the United States, every test center in North America is different. It doesn't matter. Every one of them is different because every one of them is in a different place. They have different roadways, different nuances, different streets, different traffic lights, different signs. So every test center where you're going to take a test is going to be different. And we were talking about this a few weeks back, that some drivers will take their test at one place and they'll fail and it's too hard. And there's all the chatter on the internet and all their friends say, oh my God, don't take your test there. It's so hard. And that guy with the monocle, he's so mean. He's got no hair and I think he's mad because he doesn't have any hair because like it got burned off by his mother when he was a little kid. Right? And his friends will all talk about how difficult it is to take your test at this one driving test center. So then they'll go and fail. And then they'll go someplace else and take their test somewhere else. Well, it's no different someplace else. And the other thing about it is, it might be just as hard and you might get just a mean driving examiner there. Just go back to the place where you originally took your test and failed, because you won't take your test with the same driving examiner anyway. You will have a different examiner. Okay? You will pass the test. You've already had a practice test, and many new drivers are deceived thinking, oh, you know, it was so much easier at this other place, you know, because I went there and did my test and they were so nice and she was so hot, you know, and she had this blonde flowing hair and she just sat in there and she didn't say anything to me. Crap. Bullpucky. Okay. It's the word of the day. Bullpucky. Okay. You passed because you already had a trial run at it. You know what to expect. And when you know what to expect on a test, it's going to be easier. Okay. So just keep going until you get your license. Jake, if you've had the same examiner, they may remember you and test more particularly on where you failed the test the last time. If you excel in the parking but not in the merging, you may have a different test. Jake, no, as a rule, and this is DMV rules, they will not put you with, it's very unlikely, like 2% chance that you will have the same driving examiner. They're going to give you a different examiner, because they're trying to eliminate the bias, okay? Exactly what you said. If you come back and do your test again and you have the same examiner, they may be tougher on you on the places that they failed you previously. That's not the case. They want to try and have a perception of the test being unbiased. That's why they put you with a different driving examiner. And most DMVs, most test centers will not have just one driving examiner. They have 2 or 3 at minimum, okay? The larger centers will have dozens of them, okay? All right, excellent. Practice really hard in your driving skills, as Mallory says, absolutely. Caramel, thank you, Rick. I will resend that email. Yes, please. As I said, if you send me an email, please, and I don't get back to you, please just send me another email and remind me to get back to you, because as I said, heaps of stuff going on here. And as most of you know, I'm a single dad too, so I got all that stuff going on. I got teenagers and whatnot, and they tend to be a little more busy as teenagers. They don't really, you know, go off and do their own thing. Jake, I believe you, but that has not happened to me. Same guy every time. Okay. Unfortunate for you, Jake. That's generally not the way that it happens. Okay. So just to clarify on that, Jake, was it the same guy for different classes of licenses, or was it because you failed and then went back and did a retest? Because those two things are different, right? If it's a retest, then they try and get you with a different, but if you're going for a different class of license, so for example, you got your car license and then you got your straight truck license and then you got your bus license and then you got your tractor trailer license, yeah, you might have the same examiner for every one of those tests. But if you're doing a retest, then oftentimes they'll get you with a different examiner. Fun, aren't they? Yes, they are. Yes, they are, Marion. Epic, also consider the fact that they need the vehicle interior cleaned, otherwise they'll end up canceling the test. Besides, they take driving school lessons since they'll schedule the test. Okay, and there's an excellent point that Epic just made about cleaning your vehicle. Do a pre-trip inspection on your vehicle before going down for your driver's test. Make sure all the lights work. Make sure that you have the registration and insurance. Make sure that the passenger door opens and closes. Make sure that the seat on the passenger side is secure, that the seat belt works. Yes, I've had a student that was denied their driver's test because the seat belt didn't work on the passenger side of the vehicle. Driving examiners will not go out in a vehicle that the seat belt doesn't work because it's not safe. Okay? Know that. All right? Lights are working. There's no damage. Nothing is safe. There's nothing hanging off. There's nothing underneath the vehicle that's hanging off. Make sure that you have plenty of fuel in the vehicle. You don't want to run out of fuel on your driver's test. That would be most embarrassing to run out of fuel while out on your driver's test. So make sure you have fuel. Check all the fluid levels under the hood. Make sure everything's good to go. If you're not sure, you say, for example, you have a brake light out. Take it to a technician and get the technician to fix the brake light. It's something that's easily done. If you can wield a screwdriver, you can fix a brake light on your vehicle. All right, so do that. 3 different tests, had 3 different examiners, but when I had to retest for each test, I had the same examiner. Test A had examiners all 3 times. Okay, well, that's unusual, Jake. Every time that I've taken students down for retest, they've had a different driving examiner. So my experience has been different than yours. But it does happen. I'm not saying that it doesn't happen. It does happen for sure. Okay, excellent. Corey's been put up the video on the pre-trip inspection, so definitely have a look at that video if you're taking your own vehicle. And as well, if you're going with a driving school, be sure that you ask the driving instructor if he or she did a pre-trip inspection, okay? As well, on the note of cleaning your vehicle, take it down to a car wash. Usually the vacuums are free. Vacuum it out, get all the fast food wrappers out of the footwells and those types of things. Okay, you can't have your pets. Don't bring Woofy. Okay, here in North America, the driving instructor, your driving instructor, cannot go with you on the test. Okay, it's just going to be you and the driving examiner in the vehicle on your driver's test. All right, Dabala, I just passed my class 5 driving test after I watched a lot of your videos. Thank you very much. Dabala, you are most welcome, and congratulations on passing your driver's test, my friend. Where did you go for your first drive? And as Eric said, add seafoam to your vehicle as well. Yes, indeed. And as Eric says, my brother is a technician, automotive technician. He is a huge advocate of seafoam. Yes, definitely do that when checking fluids. You should also add one thing, and that is to ask the instructor a couple of questions before you start. Which questions are those that you need to ask? Now, on that note of getting started, when the driving examiner comes out and you figure out who each other are and they get in the car and they're ready to go, they're going to do a mini pre-trip inspection on your vehicle before you take off. They will not just get in the vehicle. They're going to make sure that all the lights work, high beams, low beams, left signal, right signal, brake lights. So they're going to do that. If it's raining, they're going to make sure that the windshield wipers work and squirt, and they will get you to honk the horn. They may ask you for the registration insurance of the vehicle, but make sure that all this other stuff is working, because it's not something that you're going to do is check the registration. And I have had students that have gone down for a driver's test, and unfortunately the registration has expired and they can't go out because the vehicle's not registered and it's not insured. So make sure that your vehicle is registered, the registration is up to date, it's insured. Okay, check that. If you have a check engine light on, that's probably not a big deal for your driver's test, especially if you've had it checked out and it's not something important. However, if you have a brake light, the warning light for your brakes on your vehicle, and the brake fluid needs to be topped up or something like that, they will not take you out because that is a safety issue. Okay, so make sure that you do that pre-trip inspection on your vehicle. Dabala, you passed from Edmonton today. That is awesome, my friend. Status, drive test kiosk. We'll have a question over how many practices of highway driving. Okay, like I said, I hadn't asked about that. I didn't know about that, so there you go. Okay, I may have passed my driver's test, but that doesn't mean I still stop watching your videos. Awesome. Yeah, maintenance was what's that? Pound of prevention. An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, is the saying. There we go. Ricardo, do I need to provide insurance and vehicle registration and renting a car from my driving school for my on-road test? Ricardo, you don't. All of that should be the responsibility of the driving school, but definitely ask before you go down for your driver's test. As I said, people get denied their driver's tests all the time because something isn't working or the registration is out or those types of things. It's a good idea to just check that. When I used to go down in the tractor trailer, I used to wash the tractor trailer. We used to do a pre-trip inspection before we went down. We would check that the insurance and registration, everything else was up to snuff, safety decals and those types of things. It's not going to be as extensive on your own personal vehicle, but do a pre-trip inspection so that you stand the best chance of getting your test and being successful, because you don't want to be worried about all that stuff when you show up for your driver's test. So they're going to come out, they're going to do the mini pre-trip inspection, they're going to get in the vehicle, they're going to give you a little spiel about what you need to do. You need to obey all road rules and laws. Driving examiners, yes, some of them may be a bit gruff and those types of things, but they are not going to trick you. Okay, traffic situations may trick you and you may not have the experience to deal with some of these complex traffic situations in which you find yourself. But for the most part, driving examiners want you to fail. Made a Freudian slip there. Driving examiners want you to pass. Okay, there is nothing worse than sitting in the car and telling a student that he or she did not pass. And trust me, as a driving instructor, when students failed and you had to be in the car, in the vehicle with them, going back to the driving school or going back to wherever they live or dropping them off or whatnot, and you're sitting in that, it's awful. It's really awful. Driving examiners are on your side. They want you to pass. They want to give you good news. They do not want to give you bad news. So yes, there are some that are having a bad day and those types of things, but your job is to take away their right to fail you. Nothing less, nothing more. All right, so do that. Elevator, if you pass the school bus, that is, yes, with lights flashing, that is an automatic fail, and I hope that we don't have to preach that anymore. Unfortunately, we do, because there are still people who do it. Same thing with flaggers, okay? They'll drive through construction zones and those types of things. Marion, how do you check your brake lights if you are on your own? Marion, just put the vehicle in park and get a stick and jam it in between the seat and the, excuse me, the pedal, and hold it down and then go around, or, you know, get somebody else, but generally just get a stick or something and set it on the pedal and it'll put the brake lights on for you. Jake, tire chains came up in discussion at work. We watched a great video featuring our familiar instructor, and that's ounce stuff for those of us use King's metric. Well, ounce is a little bit and pound is a lot. There's 16 ounces in a pound, I think. I'm pretty sure. Somebody else is older than me that could tell you that. I'm pretty sure it's 16 ounces in a pound. All right, excellent. Status examiners will ask you well before the test. Yes, and the other thing is on the test, you will not fail for missing a direction, all right? If a driving examiner gives you a direction and says, okay, at the next intersection, turn right, and you turn left, okay, that is not a fail on a driver's test. Yes, you made a mistake, but it's up to the examiner to get you back where you need to go. That is not a fail. If you don't understand, ask for clarification, okay? If they said, oh, at the next intersection, turn right, and there's an intersection like half a block up from where you are, you can say, oh, do you mean this intersection right here, or do you mean up at the stop sign? And the examiner will clarify that for you. So you can't ask questions if you're not clear about what he or she is getting you to do or the directions that they're giving you. And in the same breath, they will point, okay? They know that you don't have a great deal of experience, and they're trying to be as clear as possible and communicate intent so you will be successful on passing your driver's test. Jake, we will take your plate and file police citations. Oh, getting late. Once again, thank you for your help and great conversation. Have a great night. You as well, my friend Jake, and all the best, my friend. Yes, 16 ounces in a pound. Excellent. Signing off now. Have a good night. And you have a good night as well, my friend. All the very best. Nata, passed your driving test. That is awesome, my friend. Congratulations. Thank you so much for dropping back and letting us know. Okay, so main points of passing your driver's test first time. Get the skills and abilities in place. Practice your slow speed maneuvers first. Your parallel parking, you're backing into a parking space, your three-point turn. Practice those first, then go out on the roadway a couple of weeks and then come back and redo your parallel parking slow speed maneuvers, which include parallel parking, slow speed, three-point turn, and backing into a parking space at minimum, okay? It's the little itty-bitty things of the test, but it's the little itty-bitty thing that is going to improve your overall driving and give you the skills and abilities you need to be successful on your driver's test. Slow speed maneuvers, okay? Common mistakes. Have a look at the videos that Corey's put up here, and I'll put them down in the description for you when I repost the video here so that you can have a look at those videos. Common mistakes, automatic fails, and chance events on your driver's test that could fail you. Know this information, and that way if it comes up, you'll know how to deal with it, because it doesn't come up all the time. Because as I said, a driving test is different at every driving test center. Traffic is different. You may go out for 10 driving lessons and never encounter a yellow light. And it's on the 11th one that you're going to encounter a yellow light, and you're going to have to know how to deal with that to be successful and pass your driver's test, because it could potentially fail you. All right? Shoulder checking, shoulder checking, shoulder checking. Good observation, okay? Shoulder checking, 90 degrees, using your peripheral vision, keeping yourself safe. 2 to 3 second following distance, stopping in traffic, 1 vehicle length back from the vehicle in front of you. Your landmark for that is to be able to see the tires in the front making clear contact with the pavement. All right, good luck in your driver's test, and remember, pick the best answer, not necessarily the right answer. Thank you for all your questions. Great, terrific live stream. Thank you so much, Corey, for getting up all those great videos to help people be successful on their driver's test. And if you have any questions, leave a comment down in the comment section there. And if you want some of those videos, this one right here, have a look at that. And that will definitely help you out to be successful on passing your driver's test first time. See you next time. All the best. Bye now.